This is a great segue actually into our next session with Raji, who is the VP of Engineering at OpenDoor. She's joined by Heather, Head of Engineering for Seller and Consumer Growth at OpenDoor. Welcome to both of you, Raji and Heather.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So first, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Heather Nator. I'm Head of Engineering at OpenDoor, responsible for the core product experience for home sellers, along with growth initiatives and retail partnerships. And I am very excited to sit down with my colleague, Raji Subramanian, OpenDoor's VP of Engineering. So Raji, do you want to share your role at OpenDoor and experience in tech?
Yes, thank you, Heather. I'm very, very excited to be here. So again, as Heather mentioned, I'm a VP of Engineering at OpenDoor, where I'm responsible for OpenDoor's end-to-end real estate transaction and operational platform build-out. The goal of this platform is to enable OpenDoor to create remarkable consumer experiences and enable the company to scale. Prior to OpenDoor, I co-founded a company called Pro.com, which was acquired by OpenDoor late last year. And at Pro, I was the COO and the head of product and technology as well. Before starting Pro, I had a long stint at Amazon, where I was a pioneering member as well as led a lot of teams within OpenDoor, within Amazon's marketplace, as well as AWS, and also led teams within Amazon's Kindle organization, as well as Yahoo Finance. I care deeply about diversity. I also care deeply about ESG. Both of them are very interrelated. I'm a board member and advisor to Board Ready, a not-for-profit that's improving the board diversity in public and private company boards.
It's an impressive background and really excited to dive in. Before we do that, I wanted to provide all of you just a quick overview of OpenDoor. So our mission is to take the complex traditional home buying and selling transaction and make it simple and on demand. And we've completed more than 150,000 customer transactions. We operate in 45 markets nationwide, and we continue to scale the company and the team rapidly. So as I mentioned, we have a great talk planned. Raji is going to share insights, advice, and experience on setting goals to advance a career in tech, deconstructing common career roadblocks, and delivering measurable impact that helped her get to where she is today. And the goal of the discussion is to help you make the most of your career and serve your organization well by setting meaningful and measurable goals. So Raji, you co-founded a successful technology platform and helped it grow to one of the nation's largest general contractors. You were the pioneering member of teams that helped develop Amazon's online marketplace and AWS. How did you set personal and professional goals that empowered you to make the most of your career while impacting the tech industry?
That's a really good question, Heather. And again, I use a sort of like a self-developed framework, which I call the 3P framework. The 3Ps stand for passion, purpose, and people. Passion is all about what I like doing. It's about what you really enjoy doing and you can do day in and day out with the same level of intensity that you started doing it when you started the journey. For me, that's building businesses at scale as well as engineering. The second P is purpose. It's just about taking your passion and applying it to something that you really care about. In my case, I care about creating transformative customer experiences. An example of it is about how, homes impact the lives of so many people. And that's why I started Pro, and that's what brought me to OpenDoor as well. It's a purpose that I deeply care about. And the last, of course, is the people. It's just about loving the work that you do and doing it with people you enjoy working with, who are very smart and help you grow. With that said, with that framework, I actually do a goal setting exercise, which has 4 parts to it. The first thing that I do is I ask myself, what's the value I'm creating? It's anchored along value creation. Are my goals enabling me personally, as well as where I am working, create value for its customers, employees, and stakeholders, and the business itself? Value creation is one of the most fundamental things from a goal setting perspective. And that's kind of when you create value, you move forward in your career. The second aspect of goal setting that I look at is the scale of impact. Again, things that you can do can have a small impact, and can have large game-changing impact. As you're evolving in your career, it's important to slide through the scale of moving and transitioning your goal setting from small impact to larger and larger impacts. It does not mean you don't go about making incremental changes, but there is a moving forward in terms of the scale of impact. The third thing that I look for from a goal setting perspective is, are the goals that I'm setting helping me grow in a multidimensional way from a leadership perspective? It's about bringing in that intersect between engineering, what the customer cares about. It's about the product. It's about the P&L of the company, and being able to operate in that space. Are the goals allowing you to operate in a multidimensional way is the third thing, or the third prong of goal setting I look for. And the fourth is very important and core to my heart. It's about, be purposeful. Diversity is something that I care about very deeply. That's kind of what took me to Board Ready. In the teams that I build, whether at OpenDoor or outside, I look for diversity. I seek diversity. I'm an advocate for diversity, and I also promote diversity.
Yeah, passion, people, purpose. I really love that. And I totally agree. It's always been important to me to join a company with a mission that I'm passionate about. I really want to be working with people who are smart, who challenge me to grow and learn in a positive way. And I really want to dive into some of these goal setting parts. I'd love to also hear from the audience, what role does goal setting play in your own career, while we move on and post in the chat. But before we do that, as one of the first and few women technical leaders and principal engineers at Amazon, what were some of the common career roadblocks you faced, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, and again, the challenges that I face and what I'm going to be sharing, you'll find that there's a lot of similarities with what all of us have faced. And in fact, as you called out earlier, as we are having this conversation, I'd love to hear from the audience as well, where they can post about the challenges that they faced. And you'll find that there's a lot of commonality. But again, to touch upon a few things, this is not specific to a certain company, but it's more specific to, the journey itself. The first, I'm sure all of us as technologists, in whatever role that we play in technology, one of the biggest challenges is to become a recognized technical expert. And this is a nuanced topic. The reason I say it's a nuanced topic is, there is being recognized as a leader, and then there's being recognized as a technical leader. There are so many preconceived notions that we as women, might be recognized as a leader even amongst our organization, but are we recognized as technologists and engineers who can transform that world? And so how do you break through those preconceived notions? The next is about being in the know. And being in the know is a lot about the ecosystem that you're working with, the network that you have access to, and the network you have deep relationships with. And as women, how do you go ahead and build those deep relationships, whether it's with peers, with colleagues, with managers, and with mentors, and wherever you work, is kind of like one of the key gateways, for you to be in the know. And being in the know within any workspace that you are in is what takes you, is what gives you one aspect or one dimension to what actually takes you to the next level. The third is something that that I've observed and I've personally followed. It's about leading from the front. We as women do an incredible job at work, but often we find ourselves that we ourselves sometimes, or because of the forcing function of the environment, are leading from behind. We're silent leaders. It's important that, as we're making the transformation, we not just lead from behind, we also lead from front. Examples of that include, as women leaders and women technologists and women engineers, we might vision something, we might be strategizing on something, we might be driving something. It's important to also hold the mic and be actually the representative, who gives the voice to it. And that's super critical, and not let our demons hold us back. I'll give one example, Heather. Both you and I, for example, are leading two of the most critical initiatives, literally the top two initiatives at OpenDoor. in many ways, it's, as a part of that, it's important for us to not just lead from behind, but also lead from the front.
Yeah, definitely. And, becoming recognized as a technical expert really resonates with me. I personally didn't study computer science in college. And so I always had this imposter syndrome about my technical aptitude. And frankly, it took half my career to realize I was often the technical expert in the room. So, also, as you mentioned, we are each leading from the front, driving key engineering organizations at OpenDoor. And I actually think that was a result of very conscious decisions that we've respectively made to transform the technical vision, in order to make greater impact. So, I think these are all really great, helpful points. You mentioned, Raji, that you're also very passionate about diversity and environmental and social governance. How are you working towards bringing change in the tech industry and at OpenDoor?
Yeah, and it's a combination deal, Heather, and there's two parts to it. The first is it's always got to start from home. We've got to walk the talk. For example, I'm looking to hire 50 plus people on my team, and I'm sure you are as well. And again, it's about how we walk the talk and make sure that we build, the diverse teams. And building those diverse teams is what helps companies, become durable and generational. And for example, that is one of the core values that we follow at OpenDoor. And so it's important that, it starts at home. We've got to live, breathe, and make sure that our hires are diverse. And we should never compromise on that. It's got to be a non-negotiable goal. And the second part of it is about what you do beyond, just your workspace. As I called out earlier, I do a lot of work in the ESG space, and DI is the S, the social part of ESG, and it's one big component of ESG, the other two being environmental and governance, to make sure that we have a holistic approach, to how we look at not just DEI, but beyond DEI as well. So the work that I do with Board Ready is about, how do you make sure that management teams and boards are the most diverse? So I do a lot of work in that space. I also publish in that space the research that I do. And I also work with a lot of companies, as a part of Board Ready, to make sure that we're able to bring in the diversity. The last thing I'll share is something that, my parents actually had conversations with me when I was very, very young. And this hit me then, and it still hits me. And one of the conversations that we've had this conversation multiple times, is what if women were engineers, innovators, and builders as a part of the Industrial Revolution? Would the companies today and the products today be very different than what they are? My hunch says yes, they would. And it's super important for me that as we go through the digital revolution, women are not just, key players, as a part of this revolution, but are the builders, innovators, founders, entrepreneurs, and creators, because that's when, diversity really breaks through all of the ceilings and breaks through all of the biases.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Yes. More diversity on boards, where you're getting women in places where decisions are being made, even at the smallest level. Your point about it being non-negotiable is, I think about being in multiple technical meetings at OpenDoor a week where there are multiple women, and you don't maybe notice it when they're not there, but it makes a huge difference in how you come to work and how you contribute when you do have that. I'm interested, as you reflect on your career journey, what is your advice to other female engineers or women in technical roles looking to take their career to the next level?
Yeah, and again, and this is something, we've all asked ourselves, and it's so timely given where we are, in the year today. The first thing that, I kind of have reflected on my career journey, and I'll also encourage all of us to reflect, visible versus invisible results. Again, two simple words, right? So a lot of times you'll see that as we have done a lot of work, and as women, after we put in a ton of effort, we actually feel that the results that we've delivered are invisible results. It's important to make sure that, as we're going through a career, we're delivering visible results that are measurable in their impact. And the measure need not be just a number. It need not just be a metric quantified. It can be qualitative in terms of the impact that you had on a customer's life, on a platform that you built, on a patent that you created, or an innovation that you drove, or an impact to a P&L. It could be any of those. It's super important to parse out. If you look at 2021, it would be great if each of you look at what were the visible results and the invisible results, and where did you spend most of your time. So that's one. The second, we talked about goal setting earlier. I use that framework, and I use that framework in most things I do. In terms of goal setting, the 3P framework that I called out earlier, even when I try to find a new job or things to do. The third thing I look for, the third thing that I did personally and I highly recommend is work with mentors who question and challenge you. Work with mentors who, enable you to break through your blind spots. Work with mentors who approach you with a growth mindset. I think we as women need those type of mentors who keep pushing us beyond and enable us to adopt that growth mindset. And the last I would say is be authentic. This is something that, I've had to do and I've had to learn how to do, coming in culturally in the workspace. I think we have to build a leadership style that is unique to us. And that is the one thing that I would recommend. And it goes a long way once you reach that point.
Yeah, those all resonate with me. And I love those, challenging the status quo is something I learned from my father. And, while it's sometimes uncomfortable for others, it's really served me well. And, I think we're running out of time, but I encourage people to tell us what advice has made the biggest impact in their career in the chat. Raji and I will answer a couple questions there and post how you can get in contact with us. Raji, anything else you'd like to share before we say goodbye?
No, again, the only thing I'll kind of share is that feel free to connect with both Heather and me. Happy to talk about, our experiences, happy to talk about, the transformation that we're bringing in with an OpenDoor as well as we grow our teams.
Thank you, Raji and Heather, for all your insightful thoughts on technical leadership. It was a fascinating conversation. Thank you, and we'll be seeing you in the chat then, I suppose.